Hello wonderful people, Connor Whitmore here again with another video for you on the Naughty Step channel, and today I'm going to be discussing whether there are too many predominantly dubstep labels in operation right now. This is a topic I've had at the forefront of my mind for a while now, but never quite thought about doing a video on until now. Last half year or so, we've seen the amount of high-profile labels within the dubstep sphere skyrocket, I think it would be fair to say. Not as if, there are tens and tens of them, but it isn't a small thing starting a label, so that was never going to be the case. But yeah, here we have around 7 or 8 or so, maybe more, high-profile imprints starting in the last half year or so, thinking of the likes of Halcyon, Malignant, Subsidia, Stratos, Grave Dancer, Cyclops Recordings, DPMO, Underdog Records as well, establishing just before all of those, almost a year ago, and there'll be others that I've forgotten as well. Drop them below if I have forgotten any. But yeah, in this video, what I want to know is why exactly is this happening? What has inspired this sudden upsurge? And moreover, they're all started by current producers, to my knowledge, so does that play a part in some way? But yeah, these questions and more we're going to dive into right here in this video. As with every opinion piece kind of video, I'm going to be establishing points for the argument and points against it, then try to come to some sort of conclusion at the end. But just before we get going, I want to say a big ups to Raf, who brought up this topic on the Patreon. Not the exact same, and I hope, Raf, that you'll forgive me for that. Just going to be putting my own spin on it here. But yeah, a good topic and question, and thank you for it. And yeah, if you want to be first in line for suggesting new stuff for me to talk about, then be sure to sign up to the Patreon. Link is down below in the description. But on with the video, and my first point in favour of the motion that there are too many dubstep labels in operation right now is that, yeah, there are, and that's a bad thing because it leads to oversaturation. Not only within the label market, too many labels, but obviously that means a lot more music. Labels release music, of course. Now, you might say this music, well, it's just going to get released anyway. But I beg to differ. Labels, they're the main things that people want to get their music on, as it's more exposure. And some of these examples, the labels I've talked of before, that I've just mentioned, are carving their own niche and have their own kind of aesthetic going for them. They're doing a new thing, and what they're bringing to the table is new. But for the most part, it's more of the same. And what this leads to inevitably and ultimately is a serious watering down of quality. A lot of music at the highest end of the scene being pushed to the front that doesn't really do very much, if anything, new at all. And the aim and goal and motive with that music being solely to get it on that label so that people become more aware of it, which, just isn't pushing anything really new or different. And again, this isn't all the labels that I just mentioned earlier. But you can see just how easy it would be for the quality at the highest level to decrease massively because it's so accessible. And, quite right that anyone can, release on these labels, and I'm all for that. But, it's very difficult to make great and innovative art, so the end result with so much of it being that the general quality worsens dramatically. And if you're someone that wants to hear everything once, every tune, every compilation, every EP, album, whatever, the overall impression you're going to have of the genre will lessen. My second point in favour of the motion that there are too many labels in dubstep right now is that, yeah, there are, and I think here we have, with at least a couple of them, we do have to examine just what the intent of them is in starting a new label. Discussed it briefly already, but there are labels out there genuinely trying to push something new and ambitious and trying to take dubstep music to new heights and whatnot, not only musically, but visually as well, through the artwork and trailers and all that, and then beyond that, their general attitude to making art and the freedom that should come with that. But there are other reasons for potentially starting up a new label at this time that you do kind of have to think about and consider. Stuff that you wouldn't think about off the bat, but which are important, I'm going to have to say. More music means more being available to stream. Something that rap music has been accused of and kind of signalled out for in the last year or so, the last couple of years I would say. Albums that are coming in at something like 80 tracks long or some bullshit. and people who are interested are going to want to check out every song to see if there is something in there that they might enjoy. And that means money in today's music market. And this is exactly what is happening in dubstep right now. Some people might just be starting up a new label because they can, you know, because everyone else is doing it. That thing of, if they're doing it, then why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't I hop on that trend and get involved? You know, not something with a genuine aim behind it, but just there. Without a clear goal, I think for me personally, if you're not bringing anything new to the table, then it's kind of pointless. Beyond that, another point, thanks to Karmis on the Patreon, I've also become aware of the fact that some have been set up solely to make money, and that goes beyond streaming. Quite how that would be, I'm not sure, but it could be merchandise or online shows or something similar. I don't know exactly, but again, it does make you wonder, you know, if the music isn't really doing anything new, what the ultimate motive would be and why it is that they're kind of going down that avenue. But on that point, on the flip side, do I blame them for wanting a bit of extra income to keep building what they're doing when it's scarce during a global pandemic? Probably not. You know, the lines are fine when it comes to intent and what they're doing with that money, but for the most part, I'm not sure that I could blame them. You know, people, producers, whatever, they're looking for every way that they can to keep doing what they love, and I think, of course, that's completely fair. But yeah, I do reiterate with this point that it really does depend on the individual intent for each label, each producer, each owner, whatever. Yeah, you have to keep that in mind. Now moving on to my points against the motion that there are too many labels in dubstep right now. And first off, I'm going to look at it from a kind of different angle than you might expect. I'm not going to say that there aren't too many. I think, yeah, there may be too many. But does it really matter? Surely more labels just means more music for listeners like you and I and everyone else to enjoy. You know, as I mentioned, this is the stuff that's being pushed most to the forefront, that which people are most aware of. And for many, you know, finding music, it's just a thing of having more to check out and potentially enjoy. You know, a lot of people aren't really the ones who are going to go for the underground stuff and get into the fine details of releases and whatnot. They just want more bangers, and that is what we've got through the influx of labels. You know, what one consumes as a listener is completely up to you. It's very much a take it or leave it situation. If it isn't for you, that's completely fine. Just move on to something else. That doesn't mean that people should stop making labels just because everyone won't like the music that it puts out. Moreover, I've said this already, but some people just want to start up a big project and do that big thing. And one, you couldn't deny them of that, and two, it isn't a small thing to undertake, and I think you really do, in my opinion, have to praise them for taking it on top of everything else. You know, it's serious work starting up a label and seeing it grow. And, you know, some people might say, you know, the overflow of music is worsening the overall quality, as I touched on before. There'll always be people making good stuff. You can just seek it out and, you know, find what works best for you. And secondly, ultimately, there are just more musicians being promoted at the highest level, and that's extremely important at the end of the day. It's up to them what they make, and what I like or you like, it's up to us. You know, we have the choice with what we listen to, and the surrounding material doesn't really get in the way of that. My second point against the motion being that outright there aren't too many labels. I think you could even argue that there weren't enough at that level. Talking about before the influx of 2020, it's just they've all come at the same time. That's what's happened. Beforehand, we had a bit of a monopoly in terms of the absolute top with Never Say Die and Disciple. Others, like Circus, not quite at that level in terms of consistently bringing in and raking in the biggest names and whatnot. And now I think we have multiple avenues for really getting your name out there, having your music heard, and, you know, seemingly, no matter how big you are, which ultimately is strength to the underground, which is awesome. You know, that's what we want. And when you think also of the amount of subgenres that dubstep has strayed off into by now, it's surprising in a way that there haven't been more labels surfacing recently, if you get me. I mean, it feels like something most producers want to try out and dive into at some point, making a new label. I mean, why wouldn't you want to run your own imprint where you have the ultimate say in what's put out, the design of everything and much more? And yeah, that would be awesome. And each of these people, these musicians, artists, producers, they have their own style as well. Also, I think we have to think more of the good that has come from the upsurge in new labels. You know, in many cases, the creativity and ambition coming through is exactly what dubstep needed at that point, at that moment. A kind of reaction in a way to the genre being a particular way, you know, starved of creativity and ambition, flavour, colour, all of that. And yeah, the labels just, well, most of them, some of them anyway, being the result of people wanting to see dubstep back at its best, which is also awesome. And if that's the motive, really wanting to transform that style and bring new flavours to the table, then I'm all for it. Again, don't get me wrong, not all of them are doing that, you know, far from it. But there is a lot of good coming to the fore at the moment, and you can only hope that it will continue in that vein, and that if we do get more labels bringing fresh and interesting stuff, that people will still be welcoming of it, in spite of a lot of people not being that welcoming of the influx of labels that we've got. But yeah, if that is the case, loads of new stuff, then yeah, I'm all for it. But yeah, 2 points for, 2 points against on this topic, those which came to mind and stood out to me most in discussing whether there are too many labels in dubstep at the moment. Personally, I think for me, I'm a bit on the fence. You know, for one, I'm always going to be for new labels coming through with innovative ideas and approaches and doing something new. But on the other hand, if it's just much of the same on the largest scales, it does result in a lessening of quality, which is undeniable. And beyond that, you do kind of have to wonder what the real intent is with some of them, you know, things that I mentioned before and which can't be ignored. But now I want to hear from you. Are there too many labels in dubstep right now? Does it matter? Which of the points I made did you resonate with the most? Is there anything that I missed out? Drop all of your views, thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Beyond that, subscribe if you're yet to, hit the bell along the way, and also my social media accounts and Discord are linked below in the description, as well as the new Patreon if you want to help the channel grow and get a load of bonus or exclusive content along the way. Check it out, check the different tiers and get involved. But yeah, keep it naughty. If it's naughty, then you know, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace!